Happy Superbowl Day, everybody. The big game is finally here, and later today we'll see the Cincinnati Bengals take on the Los Angeles Rams for the Lombardi Trophy. My personal prediction for the game is going to be a close 27-21 win for the Bengals. Let me know your score prediction in the comments below. Anyway, welcome back to another 2022 NFL mock draft. To celebrate the Super Bowl, I'll be making my third mock draft of the NFL season, and if you're excited, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you like NFL draft content to see my upcoming draft-related videos. But I don't want to waste too much of your time with this intro. Let's get straight into the mock draft at pick number 1, where the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock for the second straight year. After a couple years where the first pick in the draft was very obvious, this year is a little bit more interesting. The Jags already have who they hope to be their QB of the future in Trevor Lawrence, but the team overall is extremely weak and most of the top prospects in this class fit their needs. Edge is a massive position of need, and I've seen so many mocks where Aiden Hutchinson was the first pick. And I'll be honest, in my first draft of this mock, I did have them going Hutchinson, but as I've thought about it a little bit more, I've decided to change my mind and instead have them pick the Alabama offensive tackle Evan Neal. Now, Neal is not as talented of a prospect as Hutchinson is, but the reason I think he should be and will be the first pick is because if the Jaguars really want to set up a successful career for Trevor Lawrence, they need to make the pieces around him stronger. The Jags have one of the weakest O-lines in the league, and that certainly isn't helping Lawrence one bit, so bringing in an elite offensive tackle like Neal, who has proven himself at the collegiate level and only continued to get better every season, is a pick that just makes sense in terms of making this team the best it can be. The Detroit Lions are up at number 2, and if the Jags do select Evan Neal, this is just about the easiest pick in the whole draft. The Lions also have a major need at edge rusher, and the best edge rusher and best overall player in the class is Aiden Hutchinson, and he's sitting right here for them. Hutchinson was considered a solid prospect coming into the year, but after having a ridiculous season where he finished second in Heisman voting, he has established himself as the near consensus number 1 player in the draft. He was the main man on a stacked Michigan defense and helped lead them to their first college football playoff appearance. He had 14 sacks, which was third best in college football, and demonstrates an excellent mix of speed and power. He's quick, instinctive, and has a plethora of pass rush moves in his arsenal. He has a ton of experience getting double teamed, and he seems completely ready to play in the NFL. If the Lions had the opportunity, this is a pick that they just have to make if they want to continue building up this team. The Houston Texans are up next, and for the third straight pick, I like them to pick up a defensive player. An edge rusher like Kayvon Thibodeaux could definitely be in play here, but I think this team is much more likely to pick a player in the secondary, and I'll explain why. Their general manager, Nick Caserio, was previously with the Patriots as a scout and an executive, and during the prime years of the Patriots dynasty, they always focused up on building their secondary before any other defensive position. Plus, the Texans' secondary group is very poor and needs some significant improvement. The best defensive back available in the draft for me has to be Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, so I like him as a pick. As I've said a couple times on this channel, I absolutely adore Hamilton as a prospect. His tackling ability is absolutely elite, and his cross-field skills are ridiculous as well, as he can go from one end of the field to the other in a matter of seconds. He's insanely athletic and is very quick despite his big 6'4", 220-pound frame. Safeties don't traditionally have the highest draft value, but I think that can be ignored with Hamilton because he is just such a good prospect. The New York Jets are up next, and I'm going to go with a little bit of a unique pick here. Most of the mocks I've seen have the Jets going with a corner or offensive lineman, but personally I'm not going to go with either of those positions. Instead, I'm going to go with the player who came into the season as the undisputed number 1 prospect and has fallen a little, but should still be a top 10 pick of the draft, and that's Kayvon Thibodeaux. This season raised a lot of questions about Thibodeaux and his work ethic, but he's still undoubtedly an absolute beast of a player. At his best, I can pretty comfortably say that Thibodeaux is the best player in this class. While I think he's lacked the consistency at times this season, he's still coming off a great year in which he had 7 sacks. He's ridiculously athletic, quick, strong, and was just a dominant force his whole career for the Oregon Ducks. While some questions have begun to be asked about him, his ceiling is sky high, and I still think he's an elite prospect and should go around this point in the draft. The New York Giants are on the clock at number 5, and this is another one of the easiest picks in the whole draft. The Giants have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL and arguably the best offensive lineman in the class, and a top 5 prospect in my opinion. Ike Ekwonu is available, so he should and likely will be the pick if he's available. Ike Ekwonu has the versatility to play both tackle and guard in the NFL. He's big and very strong, and is absolutely dominant in the run game. He's been playing at a high level since his freshman season back in 2019 and is coming off his best season yet in college football. Ekwonu is a prospect with a couple flaws, but for the most part, he is arguably the most talented O-lineman in the draft, and I believe he's worth a top 5 pick. The Carolina Panthers will be up next, and this is one of the most interesting picks in the entire first round. Their QB room is awful. Nobody in it deserves to be a consistent starting quarterback, and usually I would have the Panthers taking a quarterback, but I think it might be a little bit different here. They definitely aren't going to find any trade partners for Darnold, but at least to me, his contract might be too big for him to be a full-time backup. Maybe they pick a QB later on, maybe they pick up someone in free agency, but I think at least with this pick they will target a different position. Sam Darnold has obviously been awful, but I'm not sure the Panthers will be able to bring in a quarterback because of how big Darnold's contract is. Their secondary needs some improvement, and after drafting J.C. Horn last year and trading for Stephon Gilmore during the season, adding another highly touted corner could make that corner group truly great. The best cornerback in my eyes, and in many others as well, is Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU. Stingley's ball skills are excellent. He's speedy, dynamic, plus he's got good hands for a corner. But for a prospect that is touted so highly, there are some issues with his game. He lacks the physicality I would love out of a truly elite prospect, and like I mentioned, he really hasn't had too much playtime over the past couple years due to injuries. When he's on the field, is he an elite corner? Yes, but are there questions about his game that could see him slip at the draft? Absolutely. Stingley is one of the most intriguing prospects in the class for me because there are so many outcomes for where he will be drafted, but for now, I think he'll be picked pretty early. The Giants are up for the second time in the first round at number 7, and I could very well see them going for another offensive lineman here because their line is really weak. But I think the team is very weak overall, and with Brian Duvall coming in as head coach, I think they'll want to start up building the rest of the team as well. One of the biggest needs is linebacker, and there are a couple star linebackers in the class, but in my opinion, the best has to be Utah's Devin Lloyd. Lloyd absolutely dominated the Pac-12 this season with more than 100 tackles, 4 interceptions, 7 sacks, plus a forced fumble. His ability to do everything on the defensive side of the football makes him an elite prospect, and he feels like the type of player who could come into the NFL and become an immediate star, similarly to Micah Parsons this year. The Atlanta Falcons are up at number 8, and last time I had them selecting a QB, but after it was announced that the Falcons plan to keep Matt Ryan for at least a year or two longer, I've switched my thoughts. I still think there is a chance they pick a QB, but for this mock I have them going somewhere else. The Falcons' D-line needs some improvement, specifically on the outsides, so with this pick I have them selecting one of the breakout stars from this year's college football season, David Ojabo. Ojabo did basically nothing a year ago, but this season he was one of the best edge rushers in college football. Everyone has talked about Aiden Hutchinson as the star edge rusher from Michigan, but Ojabo definitely deserves a ton of credit as well. He's explosive, quick, and stands out as a pass rusher. He totaled 11 sacks on the season, which is very impressive, especially when you consider what he did last year, which like I said was basically nothing. This might be a little bit early for Ojabo to be drafted, but I definitely think he's a very skilled player and deserves to be picked in the top 10 or just outside of it. The Denver Broncos are up at number 9, and they just hired Nathaniel Hackett to be their new head coach, which only increases the rumors about Aaron Rodgers joining Denver this offseason. I cannot know for certain whether that trade will happen or not, but I still do believe that the Broncos will target a veteran QB in free agency or with a trade if they can't get Rodgers. Assuming they do get a QB, they'll pursue another position here, and they need to fill that Von Miller-sized hole in the defense, and maybe they can do that with Purdue edge rusher George Karlaftis. Karlaftis is a strong edge rusher who isn't necessarily the safest pick, but is someone who's extremely talented, and bringing him in here would undoubtedly improve that D-line and help improve this Broncos team overall. At number 10, we've got the New York Jets for the second time, and this pick is a little bit more obvious. The Jets need to improve their offensive line, and they can do that with Charles Cross from Mississippi State. I think Cross can play on either side of the line, and he stands out as a run blocker, which I think is very important for the Jets as they continue to improve that run game with Michael Carter. He's solid as a pass blocker as well, and will only continue to improve if he's placed in a good scheme. Cross has a very high ceiling, and he could come into New York and be a day one starter as that O-line continues to improve with Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker, and now Charles Cross. The Washington Commanders are up at number 11 with their first pick with their new name. I, like many others, am not a big fan of the rebranding, but this video is not about that, and is instead about who I think they'll pick in the draft. With this being Washington's first pick with their new name, I think it makes sense for them to go out and try to find their QB of the future who, hopefully for them, can bring this franchise to glory. There's a solid debate for the number 1 QB in the class, but I like Matt Corral from Ole Miss, and he seems like the type of QB Washington would like in my opinion. Corral is one of the prospects that I've scouted very heavily so far, and I have to say there are some things with this game I don't really like that much. For example, he overthrows or underthrows deep passes fairly often, and sometimes relies on the run game or takes too much contact. Plus, he has that injury in Ole Miss bowl game. But other than that, I think Corral is probably the best QB in the class. He's got the accuracy and arm talent you like in a QB prospect, and the reason I love him so much as a prospect is because he's probably the most efficient passer. He averaged 9.1 yards per pass attempt this season, which is more than the other potential first-round QB prospects, and his completion percentage is higher than most as well. He also has the running ability that is becoming more of a necessity than a bonus for QBs nowadays, and I think he's very good in the pocket. That injury might offer some questions, but for now I think he's the best QB in the class and will be a great way to start off the Washington Commanders franchise. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings are up, and Mike Zimmer is finally gone, but that won't change the pick here in any way. The Vikings corner group is so poor, and every time they try to improve it, it just doesn't help, but they'll try again here with Ahmad Gardner from Cincinnati. The hype for Gardner has just exploded over the past couple weeks, and honestly, I'm here for it. Gardner is a pretty big corner, he's athletic, and he's got that length that I really look for in modern corners. I like the fit here for the Vikings, and I think it fits what they're looking for in a corner. The Browns are up at number 13, and with the success Odell Beckham is having right now in LA, Baker Mayfield is looking less and less like a truly solid franchise QB, but the Browns have already committed to having him for at least one more year. If the Browns really want to try and turn Pickett's career around before it's too late, I think the move has to be a wide receiver, and there are quite a few talented receivers in this class, and the Browns have the option of all of them. I think it makes the most sense for the Browns to target one of the local Ohio State wide receivers, and I think the better of the two is Garrett Wilson. Wilson is a polished route runner with good hands, his footwork is good, and he's coming off a very good season despite the fact that Ohio State had so many receiving targets this year. He's good in the air and is a very good deep threat. Wilson seems like the type of guy that the Browns would love, and I definitely think he is one of the premier receiving prospects in the class. The Ravens are up at number 14, and naturally Lamar Jackson getting injured is something you don't want to see, but I think the Ravens missing the playoffs this year kind of benefits them because it allows them to have an earlier pick and pick up some highly touted draft capital to truly build up that team and maybe make them elite next year. I think their O-line is pretty weak, and he's fallen a bit in this mock draft, but Tyler Linderbaum is a truly top 10 talent in the class. Linderbaum is athletic, quick, and has been one of, if not the best offensive lineman in college football over the past couple years. Bradley Bozeman's contract is expiring, and he's had some struggles over the past couple years, so the Ravens going out and getting the number one center prospects in the class just makes sense. The Philadelphia Eagles are up at number 15 and 16 because of the trade with the Dolphins and the Colts. The Eagles surprised everyone by having a decent little season this year, even making it to the playoffs, but they're still a team with quite a few holes. There are quite a few choices for the Eagles here, but I think the picks are pretty simple. We'll start with number 15. The Eagles seriously need to improve the secondary because Darius Slay can't do it all by himself, and luckily there are some talented cornerbacks left on the board. Another guy I spent a ton of time studying, and one of my favorite prospects in the class, is Washington's Trent McDuffie. He's following a long line of Washington corners who made it to the NFL, and I think he has the potential to be the best out of all of them. McDuffie is undersized but versatile, as he can play slot corner, outside corner, and has the potential to convert to safety as well if necessary. McDuffie is physical enough and is very athletic. Additionally, he can be a big help on special teams. McDuffie just makes so much sense for the Eagles in my opinion because he can play wherever they need him. Either they can place him at outside corner to replace Steven Nelson, whose contract just expired, or they can move Avonte Maddox to the outside and have McDuffie play in the slot. McDuffie's size could lead to him slipping a little bit in the draft, but he's my number 2 corner in the draft overall, and I definitely think more people should start talking about him. The second pick isn't too difficult either. Derek Barnett is set to be a free agent, and it doesn't look like the Eagles plan on re-signing him. Plus, Brandon Graham is only getting older and older, and the two of them eventually leaving is going to leave a big hole on the defensive line. Luckily, this class is insanely deep at the edge rusher positions, so the Eagles will take surprisingly the first Georgia player so far in Travon Walker. Walker has the versatility to move around that D-line when needed. He's got a big frame and reach, plus his athleticism and explosiveness is top tier for a defensive end. I love Walker, and I love the fit of Philly. Next up is the Los Angeles Chargers, and I'm going to be real quick and honest. Their run defense is terrible. With this pick, they'll just take the best defensive lineman available, which happens to be DeMarvin Leal. There was some controversy with Leal maybe a month and a half ago when he was arrested, but it seems he'll still be a first-round pick because he is so talented. Leal is ridiculously versatile, with the ability to play absolutely everywhere on that defensive line, which is exactly what the Chargers need. The Saints are up at number 18, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this pick. Of course, they just lost Sean Payton as he retired, which makes this pick a whole lot harder for me to predict. Plus, Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston are both set to be free agents, which means that this team has a question mark at both the head coach and quarterback positions. I think they can re-sign one of the QBs or maybe even trade for a veteran like Russell Wilson, so I'm not going to say this will be a QB, even though it very well could be. Nevertheless, a quarterback can't thrive without having a solid group of receivers around him, and the Saints can try and bolster that fairly average group overall with, in my opinion, one of the most talented wide receivers in the class, Treylon Burks. Burks has the hands and speed to be a big-time playmaker in the NFL. Plus, he's got that big frame and that physicality you want to see in a potential NFL wide receiver. He was also used a little bit in the run game this season and could maybe be used kind of like Deebo Samuel has been used this season for the Niners. Burks is just that receiver who screams talented and someone who could become a truly elite NFL receiver alongside with Mike Thomas as he comes back next season. The Philadelphia Eagles are back on the clock at number 19, and even with their 2 picks already made for them, they still have some significant needs on the team. Devonta Smith has been good, but they still need that number 2 wide receiver. However, picking a receiver in the first round 3 years in a row just doesn't seem logical enough to me, and there are still a ton of free agent and trade options that the Eagles have been rumored to go after. Now, I know that the Eagles never take a linebacker in the first round, but when you have 3 first round picks and the whole of the position is so huge, I think they have to pick one. Devin Lloyd is off the board, but arguably the most talented linebacker in the class. Nakobe Dean is still available. I am a firm believer that one of the 2 linebacker prospects in this class will slip a bit, and in this case, I think it'll be Dean, which I'm pretty sure the Eagles wouldn't be disappointed in at all. Dean is dominant as a pass rusher, but is great in coverage and as a run defender as well. The weakest part of his game might be his tackling, though he certainly isn't too bad at that either. Dean is just one of those all-around linebacker prospects who definitely has the potential to be an excellent player in the NFL. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger is officially gone, and I definitely don't believe a guy like Mason Rudolph has the potential to be a consistent starting quarterback in the NFL, so I think they need to find their QB of the future. Of course, there's always the chance for them to pick up someone in free agency or a trade, but I think it's just a little bit easier right now for this team to go and find their QB of the future. The story of Kenny Pickett going from the Pittsburgh Panthers to the Pittsburgh Steelers have been getting really popular recently, and if Pickett is available when the Steelers pick, he just has to be the selection. A lot of people have Pickett as the number 1 QB in the class, and it's not very hard to see why. He's got solid arm talent, an NFL-type frame, and has the ability to make a lot of NFL-type throws. While he's not a run-first type of guy, he has the ability to take off when needed and is good at moving around in the pocket. The Steelers team needs to find the next franchise QB after Big Ben, and there may not be any better options than Pickett. The Patriots are at number 21, and I think that playoff loss showed that this team is getting better but still have a long way to go before they can become true contenders under Bill Belichick again. They found their QB in the future in Mac Jones, who is very solid this season, but he could be a whole lot better with a true number one wide receiver. The Patriots have been rumored to pursue a wide receiver in free agency, but even then the group needs help, and arguably the best wide receiver in the draft class is Drake London, and he seems like a great fit. London did pick up an injury, but was probably the best receiver in college football before that, and has pretty much secured himself a spot in the first round. He's probably the most physical receiver in the class, he's got reliable hands, and he's got a nice big frame. He's not the speediest receiver, but I think he's a very good end zone target, and I think him and Mac Jones could develop a very good combination in the future. The Raiders are next at 22, and they're another team that could use a receiver. Hunter Renfrow was great this year, but after the whole Henry Ruggs incident, I think the team needs another wideout, especially one that can be a speedy, deep threat. 3 wide receivers are already off the board in this mock, but in some people's mind, the best is still available, and that's Chris Olave from Ohio State. Now, I don't love Olave as much as some people because, as I've said before, I think he lacks the physicality and his route running could be better, but other than that, he's an excellent prospect who is definitely worthy of a first-round pick. He shines as a deep threat and has solid hands as well, plus he's got the speed and dynamism you wish to see in a wide receiver prospect. I see the Raiders wanting to build up that receiving game with Josh McDaniels as the head coach, and Olave could definitely help out with that. The Arizona Cardinals are up next, and after the excellent start to the season, they really disappointed at the end. The team is still very talented overall, but have a couple holes to fill in the draft. Corey Peters is 33 and a free agent, and the Cardinals need to find someone to fill in for him. Luckily, the best defensive tackle in the class, Jordan Davis, is sitting here at 23, which makes this a no-brainer. Davis was incredible this season, and he's got some great upside if he's picked into the right situation. He's big, he's athletic, he's quick, and he was pretty much the best defensive tackle in college football this season, and he helped Georgia win the national title. Davis is easily one of the top prospects in the class, and I can only imagine how good this Cardinals D-line could be if they add Davis to it. The Dallas Cowboys are up at number 24, and I don't love their safety room, and I think they should try and pick up a talented safety here, but similarly to linebacker with the Eagles, it's just not a position they pick early on in recent times. Left guard Connor Williams is set to be a free agent, and right guard Zach Martin is 31, and we don't know how much longer he'll be with the team. Kenyon Green is one of the most versatile and talented offensive lineman prospects in the class, and he's got the ability to play pretty much anywhere on the line. This season he played left tackle, left guard, and right guard at least once for Texas A&M, and was excellent every time. I think he shines as a guard and is probably best suited to play guard in the NFL, which is just what the Cowboys need, and as a bonus, Tyron Smith is 31, so maybe Green could shift out to left tackle when Smith eventually leaves or retires. No matter where he plays, I feel confident that Green will be a solid addition to the Cowboys O-line. The Bills are up at number 25, and if anything, that playoff game against the Chiefs showed me that they are a true contender, but still need to improve that defense. No matter how good their offense is, their defense cost them that playoff game, and there's no argument about it. They'll get Tre'Davious White back next season, but still need to improve that corner group, and I'm still a big fan of Andrew Booth from Clemson. Booth has athleticism and quickness, plus he's tall and long. He demonstrates good physicality and strength, and I feel like he's one of the more NFL-ready corners in the class. I've said it so many times, but the Bills need to find that partner for Tre'Davious White, and Booth seems to have the right traits. The Tennessee Titans are up at number 26, and I see them wanting to build up this offensive line, and they can do that with one of the premier prospects in the class in Trevor Penning. Penning is coming from a smaller school in northern Iowa, but has a huge build and was very solid at the Senior Bowl. Penning is a prospect with so much upside, and while I'm not sure he should be a day one starter, I'm sure he could eventually develop into a solid NFL starter. We've got the Bucs up next, and Tom Brady is gone. He officially retired from the NFL, which still feels weird to say. The QB position is a question mark, but I do feel confident that this pick won't be a QB, but maybe to help out whoever does play QB, they'll try and find some new weapons. Antonio Brown is gone, and Chris Godwin's contract is expiring, so I think they need to add another talent at the position, and Jameson Williams is one of the best in the class at the position. Williams got injured in the national championship, which is why I see his draft stock falling a little bit, but once he comes back, he definitely has the potential to be a great starting receiver in the NFL. Williams' best attribute is his blazing speed, but he's also a solid route runner, and it was extremely important to Alabama as they made it all the way to another national championship game. The Packers are up next, and this offseason is going to be huge for them, because as we know, this offseason could change their team entirely. Aaron Rodgers may leave, but they already have Jordan Love, so this pick won't be a QB, but Devontae Adams could also be on his way out, and if he does leave, the Packers need to draft someone who can hopefully fill in the hole for him. The hype has died down just a bit for him recently, but I still love Jahan Dotson. I think he should easily be a first-round pick. Dotson has some of the best hands in the entire draft. He's a good route runner, he has good speed and athleticism, and despite his small size, he's able to go up to make almost any catch. Personally, I love Dotson, and I'd be very interested to see what he could do in Green Bay, whether Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback or not. We've got the Miami Dolphins at number 29 because of their trade last year with the San Francisco 49ers. This Dolphins team really needs to fix their offensive line as it's been struggling for a few years now, and in my opinion, the most talented offensive lineman currently available is Daniel Falele. Personally, I would give Falele a second round grade, but with how many offensive linemen could go off the board early, I wouldn't be surprised to see him jump into the first round. He's relatively new to football, but is absolutely huge and improved so drastically this season over his previous seasons. If he continues his development at the rate he's currently at, he could become an excellent starting lineman in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs are up at number 30, and I still want to see them improve that defense a little bit. They are easily one of the most talented teams teams in the NFL, and there aren't any glaring holes, but I'll have them improving the outside of that defense with someone who has jumped up so much on draft boards, Jermaine Johnson. Honestly, Johnson could go much higher than this, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. He had a great season at Florida State this year and was pretty easily the best player at the Senior Bowl even without playing every single day of it. He's big, he's a sack machine, and it seems like a worthy addition to that Chiefs defensive line. And finally, we have these two Super Bowl teams. Like I said at the beginning, I think the Bengals will win, which means the Lions will pick here at 31, as they own the Rams pick. The Lions picked the number 2, and I said it was the easiest pick in the draft, and this one might be just as easy. Jared Goff is certainly not the long-term solution at QB for Detroit, so here they pick up Malik Willis with what may be the steal of this mock draft. Willis' draft stock has shot through the roof after his performance at the Senior Bowl, and he's absolutely established himself as a first-round pick now. Willis is such an interesting prospect to me because he has elite arm talent, in fact, probably the best in the class. He's ridiculously quick and is probably the best scrambling QB in the class, and he gets immense velocity on his passes and can fit them into any window, no matter how tight. When I put it like that, he sounds like a first overall pick, but when you take into account the high amount of turnovers this season, the struggles against teams he should have beaten very easily, and just an overall lack of consistency, it becomes more clear that he's an incredibly talented QB, but could definitely have issues in the NFL if he isn't coached correctly. I think Goff should be the starting QB next year, but after that, Willis can take over and maybe bring the team to glory. And finally, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, the team that shocked everyone and made it all the way to the Super Bowl, and in my opinion, the team that will win it. But no matter how great they've been this season, their offensive line is still pretty bad. It's been solid, but other than that, I think they need help. A lot of alignment have already gone off the board, but Bernard Raymond is still here, and he's a very talented prospect who I could see sneaking into the end of the first round. Raymond is really big and is coming off easily his best season in college football. He's also coming from a smaller school, but I think that can be excused because of how talented he is. And that's it for my 2022 Super Bowl NFL mock draft. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to this point in the video, I appreciate you very much. And if you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I know that for the past more than a year now, uploading on this channel has been really inconsistent, but I'm planning to make a ton more draft-related content now that the offseason is just about here. Over the next few weeks and months, I'll be making some more mock drafts, some prospect rankings, and I'm even going to be experimenting with some YouTube shorts, so stay tuned for that. Once again, I'm sorry for the lack of consistent uploads recently, but I'm going to try making a ton more content, and I'll try to make my channel the best channel for draft content on YouTube. If you're interested in the draft, this is the channel for you, so once again, please feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.